Greetings! Welcome to another episode of Porygondolier. In today's installment, Shedinja dances with swords in Gen 1 Pokemon. Shedinja, 1 HP, 13 immunities, the erratic growth rate, and a completely unique method of acquisition. All of this and more, coming right up. Hang on a sec. That's not Shedinja. No sir indeed. This, oi, come back, is Nincada. And we need to start with Nincada in order to get Swords Dance on Shedinja. On the left here we have Shedinja's Gen 3 learn set. As you can see, there's no mention of Swords Dance. So it must learn it as Nincada, right? Actually, no. Okay, so we can use the TM. Wrong again! It is in fact Ninjask, the evolved form of Nincada that gets to learn Swords Dance. In case you didn't know, evolving a Nincada into Ninjask causes a Shedinja to mysteriously appear in your party, which begs the question, what exactly is this guy talking about? Well, allow me to demonstrate in a modern Pokemon game. Ah, the colours, the graphics, the glaring lack of backwards compatibility. In order to get Swords Dance, we need to say no to evolving at level 20 and keep saying no until it hits level 25. After evolving, we let Ninjask learn Swords Dance, and then, after that, the game makes a Shedinja with the same moves and stats as Ninjask. It's a bit of a strange concept to fathom, but the point to take away is this. If we want Swords Dance on Shedinja, we must evolve Nincada at exactly level 25. And FYI, this only works in Gen 3 and 4. And well, just for today, it works in Gen 1 as well, as I've added all of Shedinja's mechanics to Pokémon Blue. Before leaving Gen 3, I need to hatch an egg. This egg came from a very handsome Beautifly and a common garden Nincada, and the result is a Nincada that knows Silverwind. And now I just need to bring it back to Gen 1. Now, I know you didn't come here for Nincada, but while I blast through the early game, my goal is to convince you that Nincada is actually really cool. In fact, I'd say this entire evolution family is just oozing with interesting juice. For one thing, Nincada and Co all belong to the Erratic Experience group. This rather exclusive club max out their level at only 600,000 EXP, a whole 200,000 less than those in the Fast group. The downside of this is that they are very slow to grow in the early levels. You can see here, we're over an hour into the game and Nincada is just hitting level 11. At this point, I've already attempted Brock multiple times, but none of Nincada's moves hit hard enough and the battle is a real slog. At level 11, it's finally just about doable. I start off with a Silverwind and get very lucky that its secondary effect is triggered, boosting all of Nincada's stats. Next, I'll use Harden a couple of times to minimise the damage from Geodude's tackle. There's a balancing act here as I also want to get some damage done before Geodude maxes out on Defense Curl. I then get a very lucky crit from Silverwind that really makes a difference in this attempt. Now it's a case of recouping as much health as possible with Leech Life. It doesn't do much, but in this battle, every hit point counts. Onix is a bit different. It doesn't have a defensive move, but does come with Screech. So my first job is to counter this as much as possible with Harden. Now we can feed a Silverwind to Onix's Bide just to find out how much it hurts. Or we could use Harden, I suppose. Ow! It looks like Silverwind might be a bit too risky, so I opt to chip away at it with Leech Life, and as is often the case with Onix, this takes rather a long time. Finally, with Onix in range of fainting, it's one last Silverwind and the first badge is mine. Returning to the topic of Nincada being an interesting little dude, let's have a look at its type. Bug and Ground, a combination only shared with Sandy Cloak Wormadam, one that makes perfect sense if we think about Nincada's real-world buggy counterpart, the periodic cicada. Or cicada, if you prefer. Like Nincada, real-world cicadas spend their youth underground. They actually stay like this for several years, before finally emerging as their Ninjask-like adult form, and shortly thereafter, meet their maker. The slow start of the erratic growth group, and very quick growth to level 100, is actually a brilliant metaphor for the lifespan of the cicada, and since Erratic and this family of bugs are both from Gen 3, I think it's very likely that Erratic was introduced very much with Nincada as reason number 1. Now, Nincada's typing might be a perfect fit, but that doesn't mean it's a good fit for the next portion of the game. On the whole, Route 3 is basically fine, although it does get pecked by Spearow, which, let's be honest, if this was real life, Nincada just got eaten. Even Mount Moon isn't too much trouble, with Nincada's bug-type moves coming in very handy for the many poison types. Now, it's the next bit after this that is a real sticking point for our buggy little friend. Just as a side note, we are now 2 entire hours into the game and Nincada is still at level 15. With this much EXP, a medium slow grower would already be at level 20, but that's Erratic for you. In front of me, I have 2 choices, and both of them are bad choices. To see how bad Misty's gym might be, I try out this swimmer and come up against Horsey. And by this point, Nincada knows Fury Swipes, but just look at those bubbles. Not even close to beating Horsey, so naturally, Misty is out of the question. Bad choice number 2, of course, is John. The main culprit here is Pidgeotto. Considering that Pidgeotto probably eats Nincadas for breakfast, it might not surprise you to hear that our bug-type moves do virtually nothing. And Fury Swipes, well, it's just a more rubbish version of Fury Attack. I'm not even kidding, it has worse accuracy and less PP. I'm not terribly sure why this move exists. Well, since Pidgeotto is doing big damage on Nincada, I figure there might be a way through with Bide. While it does look somewhat promising, I can't afford to charge up a second Bide, and Nincada is swiftly defeated. I briefly considered the same strategy for Horsey, but no. So it's time to grind with Wild Encounters. At level 16, we do actually get kind of close to beating Pidgeotto, but it's still not enough. Many failed attempts later, I have to concede that the only way forward is an even stronger Nincada. Leveling up through Wild Encounters, however, is tedious work, and I really don't like to do this, but just to see what happens, I use both of my floor candies after saving. Again, Pidgeotto treats Nincada like a healthy snack, but I've reason to believe we might just be able to pull through. Really, it just comes down to good luck with Fury Swipes, and in the very next battle, I get a crit, which makes every subsequent hit critical too. This might look pretty bad for the rest of the fight, but actually, Abra is a really good setting up point. Because Abra only has teleport, Nincada can quite happily work its way up to maximum hardness, and then use Leech Life to one-shot and recover a decent chunk of HP. Now here's a miss due to Sand Attack, and I'd like to make an objection, because Nincada is mostly blind in the first place. But that doesn't stop it from being a decent physical attacker, and thanks to Brock, we're already getting buffs from the badge boost glitch. This means when we do finally get a hit, it lands like a moderately sized brick. I then hit Charmander with a Silver Wind, dealing damage equivalent to a kind of broken fragment of a brick. Not a tiny one, just part of a brick. Let's say slightly more than half a brick that you just stumbled across in the garden or in the woods for some reason. I'm really not sure where this comparison is going, but anyway, Charmander does the worst thing imaginable. It growls at me. All of that lovely badge boost goodness growled away in a single attack. Actually, could have just used Ember and probably knocked me out in one, but thankfully, this John is pretty dumb, and after all of that, we can finally make our way up the bridge. I defeat the rocket, and Nincada tries to evolve, so I frantically mash the B button as it is not yet time. I'd like to say that the rest of this route was smooth sailing, but Nincada did unfortunately get eaten again. It's a jolly good job we have a save function. Eventually though, we reach Bill's cottage and get the SS ticket. And as you can tell, this is definitely a speedrun, so it's crucial to use the escape rope to save a teeny tiny bit of time. We can now get a TM that is going to be very useful indeed, but this completely innocent bystander isn't going to give it up without a fight, and it's only on my third attempt that I finally managed to knock out Machop with enough plant root juice left to take on Drowsy. And this is where bug type moves come in really handy, being the only type in the base game that is super effective against psychic types. Even Leech Life with its base power of 20 is actually really good here. Now, Dig is a move that Nincada learns naturally at level 45. Here are Nincada's Gen 1 moves, by the way. Better late than never, right? But of course, I'm just going to teach it Dig via its CD-ROM drive. Gen 1 Dig is a tremendously powerful move, coming with a base power of 100, which is a number that is even bigger than 90. What? Is that what I wrote in the script? Really? Okay then. With a move like this on hand, perhaps, just maybe, we might be able to make some progress in Misty's gym. Ooh, this is pleasant. Right, first off, let's see if we can handle a swimmer. And straight away, we outspeed it with Dig and almost get a one-shot. Bubble still stings a bit, but that's Horsey down with barely a sweat broken. Shelder is up next, and due to its main defining characteristic being defensive clam thing, this does take quite a while, but in the end, I come away brimming with confidence that we now have what it takes to beat this gym. Goldeen is a similar story, and with that, it is now time for Misty. Staryu wastes no time firing off a water gun, and a slightly enraged Nincada digs deep to send its opponent flying back off to the stars. Not sure if the crit mattered there or not. Starmie though is just too fast, and it's clear to see that Nincada has no hope at its current level. So I finish off all the trainers atop Nugget Bridge and come back at level 23. But alas, even Staryu is still too fast. But then, X Defend, a chance at last. If we can just put everything into a single dig. No. And so, it's time to move on. Misty can wait. I have a feeling that this particular battle will be much easier in a short while. Just before arriving in Vermilion City, Nincada reaches level 24, and I say no to evolution for the 5th and final time. I battle a few trainers over here, and upon beating a Nidorino, we finally hit the important milestone of level 25. Nincada evolves into Ninjask, learns Swords Dance in the place of Harden, and a Shedinja mysteriously appears in my party. How on earth did this get here? Whoa. Ah! Whoa! I don't like this. What was that? Who's there? What's going on here? Is that me? From my perspective, it rather sounds like you, sir, are me. Well, be that as it may, but I have a game to play, good sir, so I bid you good day. As do I. Toodaloo. I wonder what he's going to do then. As for me, I'm going to deposit this Ninjask and carry on the game with just Shedinja. So far, I've been talking rather a lot about this entire family of Pokemon, but now let's have a quick recap of what makes Shedinja itself really unique. Firstly, it has only 1 HP, and I don't mean a base HP of 1, that would actually be slightly better. No, Shedinja has to make its way through the entire rest of the game with only a single hit point to its name. This means a single attack is all it'll take to knock it out, but Shedinja has a little trick up its sleeve to balance things out. In the modern games, it comes with a very special ability called Wonder Guard. What this does is it takes all the damage that isn't super effective and throws it in the bin, or garbage can if you prefer. With Shedinja's Bug and Ghost typing, this translates to 13 immunities. Well, more like 11 in Gen 1, as these two don't exist. Except for, well, no, go away, Volo, you're making it confusing. An easier way to think about this is that Shedinja can only be hit by these 5 types. We can throw Dark out for now and pop this down over here. Of course, there is no such thing as abilities in Gen 1, so I had to think very carefully about how such a Pokemon would likely have been programmed. In the end, I settled on adding an exception to a bit of code that deals with damage multipliers. It says, "That Shedinja? Or is it? And is the damage multiplier 1x or less? Oh, it is it? Well, in that case, the damage multiplier is now 0x, which is number talk for immune." Porygondolier would like to apologise to the beautiful nation of Scotland on behalf of this buffoon. We'd like to promise that it won't happen again, but it probably will. I'll be leaving those weaknesses on the screen for the rest of the video, because as my regular viewers will know, type matchups and my brain do not get along. Right, let's go fight Misty. Well, I say fight, it's not really much of a fight, since both of her stars are sporting normal and water-type moves. Meanwhile, I still have Dig, and it's now powered by a very respectable base 90 in attack, so that's a fine example of Wonder Guard when it works. Now let's head to the SSN. It's always nice to get the floor candy here, but first we have to fight this gentleman. Now he's got a Growlithe, which is a bit worrying, but 3 things to mention. 1, I'm faster. 2, it doesn't have any fire type moves. And 3, dig. But what about Ponyta? Well, 1, it's fast. 2, hot. And 3, oh dear. When we run into situations like this, there's only really one thing we can do. We have to get faster. Trouble is, I have no idea how fast Ponyta is. Let's worry about that later and go fight John. First up is Pidgeotto, which has the attacks Gust, Sand Attack, and Quick Attack. At first glance, it might appear that we need to be very afraid of Gust, but for whatever reason, Gen 1 Gust is actually normal type, so Noble Shedinja, draw thy sword. This battle is in stark contrast to the last time we faced John. Let's just hope John's bird doesn't learn a flying type move, make our lives really difficult later on. Oh, another Pokemon that can't damage me. I do hope that a Silverwind powered up by 3 lots of Swords Dance doesn't have any
permanent lasting effects.
Leech Life is more than enough for Kadabra, and here comes Charmeleon. As long as we outspeed it... Okay, so clearly we need to speed up Shedinja. Thankfully, there's a good number of trainers on this boat just waiting to dish out EXP, and after clearing a bunch of them out, I return to the fight at level 27. Unfortunately though, it's still not enough. I could really do with knowing just how high Charmeleon's speed stat is. Well, I tried the battle again, and this time the very thing I was banking on happens against Pidgeotto. That is, Silverwind's secondary effect triggers, boosting all of Shedinja's stats. Surely this will be enough. It is! I give it one more try, but relying on Silverwind's 10% chance is clearly not a great strategy. And the thing is, issues around speed are going to keep cropping up in this run, and so I think it's time to go away and make a very simple enemy speed indicator for my overlay. Nothing fancy, I'll just spend an hour or 2 on it to get something that works. 2 days later. I'm back. I may have gotten a bit carried away, but check this out. When we go into battle, the town map indicator now displays the enemy types and stats. I've deliberately left HP out of this based on some logic that wouldn't really stand up to any scrutiny. I am rather pleased with the efficient use of space though, as the bottom right hand corner is actually spoken for. Anyway, here's Charmeleon and its speed stat is 40. Okay, so we're probably only a couple of levels off. I find a few more trainers east of Vermilion, and upon reaching level 29, Shedinja is now slightly faster than Gentleman's Little Pony. After ignoring the 3-second rule and rescuing the floor candy from the floor, I continue to clear out every single trainer available to me, and take down a single wild Spearow to finish the job. Now it's just a case of digging a hole at Charmeleon, and I can finally go to rub the captain's back. Back rubbed and cutbush cut means it must be time for my monthly reminder that I still haven't deactivated the Vermilion Gym puzzle. Maybe I like flicking switches in bins, okay? Is that so wrong? Now, as we face Lieutenant Surge, I need to talk about a certain category of moves that completely ignore immunities. One of these is Sonic Boom, which does a blanket 20 HP of damage regardless of types. That's about 20 Shedinja's worth. Now these moves work differently in the modern games, but in Gen 1 they very specifically ignore immunities, with Nightshade being able to hit normal types and Seismic Toss working on ghosts. Other moves belonging to this group are Dragon Rage, Psywave, Super Fang, Counter, and Bide. On beating Surge, Shedinja can now learn Confuse Ray. There's a good case for replacing Leech Life here, but I do have a target moveset in mind today, and Confuse Ray doesn't feature. More on that in a short while. Now, there's very little to mention all the way to Celadon City. It's just battle after battle against teams of Pokemon unable to lay so much as a finger on my bug. Okay, perhaps an honorary mention for the Exploding Hiker. This guy has Rock Throw on every member of his team, but they're also tremendously slow and weak to dig. And so, we arrive in the big city without losing a single point of HP, which is usually a point of bragging rights, but today it's more of a necessity. In Celadon Gym, I clear out most of the gym trainers and somehow remember to challenge Erika. In this fight, Shedinja is immediately poisoned by Victory Bell. damage from status moves is another way Shedinja can lose. But prior to Gen 3, you don't take poison damage after a knockout, and thanks to the Majesty of Silverwind, hello! Greetings! Thanks to the Majesty of Silverwind, this ends in a win. Down in the depths of the rocket hideout, I come across a fascinating item called an HP Up. I try it out on Shedinja, but alas, it seems there is nothing to be done about its predisposition. Giovanni is another free fight, and after mopping the floor with Kangaskhan, Shedinja hits level 38. It now gets to learn Shadow Ball. I included this move as Shedinja has never had access to Lick or Nightshade. In this alternative universe where Shedinja exists in Gen 1, I'd like to think that the range of Ghost-type moves would at least be slightly more fleshed out than what we got. Both Spite and Grudge don't really make sense with the PP system in Gen 1. With Shadow Ball being introduced as early as Gen 2, I don't think it's too much of a stretch to think that we might just have gotten it. Also, it was already in my ROM. With Leech Life replaced, Shedinja now has the exact moves I wanted to teach it. With some luck, I'll hold on to all of these throughout the game. Getting back to the game, our next obstacle is Spooky John in the Pokémon Tower. And just like last time, his Pidgeotto has no way to damage Shedinja. I use this chance to set up Swords Dance, but I've completely forgotten about Sand Attack. Already, I can't seem to land a Silverwind, which is the only attack here that can hit John's bird. This results in a great big waste of PP. To conserve said PP, I go for hole digging against the eggs, which doesn't quite do enough. But it hardly matters, as Shedinja is immune to eggs. And next up is Gyarados. Shadow Ball misses, and here comes Dragon Rage. That was pretty unlucky, but with a little strategy change, we can massively reduce the chance of that happening. First, no setting up on Pidgeotto. I go straight for Silverwind, and that's actually really good. Gust is fine, one more Silverwind, and that's the bird cleared without taking a single Sand Attack. Now Execute is a much better rest stop for Dancing with Swords. Although it can put Shedinja to sleep, it hardly matters in the grand scheme of things, and when Shedinja wakes up, it's feeling very refreshed and ready to get back to digging holes. A one-shot Shadow Ball is the special sauce to avoid Dragon Rage, and as we know, Kadabra is allergic to bugs. Now we have a very important speed matchup, and yes, Shedinja is slightly faster than Charmeleon, so this is in the bag as it were. Incredible, that was a Gen 1 miss. Do all of that again, and that's John done. As we proceed through the tower, we have to fight some ghosties, and Lick, Nightshade and Confuse Ray are all pretty problematic. But as it happens, my ghost is over-leveled enough to make up for Ghastly being faster, and Shadow Ball is the perfect move to take out a shadowy ball of gas. There's also a ghostly Marowak, although it's not really a ghost as such, it's more of a... It's just a normal Marowak. Anyway, I beat it. Let's move on to Snorlax. I don't actually need to beat Snorlax, I could simply run away, but I always like to beat it if I can, and Snorlax being pretty tanky, this seems like a good test for Swords Dance. As we can see, Swords Dance is very good. And as a result of this highly scientific investigation, I award Swords Dance a 6 out of 6 on the Pory scale. After a very pleasant bike ride, Shedinja disassembles several Drowsies, and let's take a look at Koga. So first up we have Coughing, and I should be using anything but Shadow Ball. I mean, it's not bad, but both Dig and Silverwind would be super effective. Did I mention I have trouble remembering type matchups? Surprisingly, even Dig fails to secure a win, and Poison Gas has all but doomed Shedinja to faint. Yeah. Okay, so trying again, this time I'll set up Swords Dance. And Coughing does have poison-inducing moves, but because they also do damage, they can't actually poison me. With all this attack, Coughing is an easy one-shot, and the same can be said for Muck and Coughing too. And all that's left is the self-destructing Wheezing. Do feel free to self-destruct. Shadow Ball, X attack, okay. Go for a Dig. No! All I had to do was not use Dig. There was no reason to change. One more time, sticking with Shadow Ball. There's the Toxic again, but it's fine. And that's badge number 5. Now we have two choices, Blaine or the Sylph Co. I don't know about you, but I have a pretty bad feeling about Blaine's Rapidash, so the Sylph Co. it is. I'll kick things off with a trip to the 10th floor to grab the floor candy and some floor Carbos, for what will be an absolutely essential boost in speed. But sadly, not nearly enough. We're actually getting badge boost on speed now as well, but even with that, we're still 11 points short of matching Pidgeot, and since it has wing attack now, there's no way Jose. What I can do is to try using all of my rare candies. I only have 5 as I used 2 up earlier in the run, but as we can see, that still leaves me 4 points short, so there's nothing for it. We're just gonna have to train. In a way, this is easier done than said, or perhaps I should say, Shedinja is just starting to catch some wind in its sails. See, from level 45 onwards, those in the Erratic Growth Club level up faster than any other Pokemon, and as I take down numerous rockets in the Sylph Co, this is really apparent, as it levels up at an astonishing rate. Ah, look at the cute little Zubat. Now at level 50, we can happily outspeed Pidgeot, but we do have to beat it in 1, and that is clearly not going to happen. So I've already mentioned that my plan is to try and stick with this moveset, but for the sake of completion, I'll briefly mention Shedinja's TM list, which includes Double Team, Flash, and Hyper Beam, all of which could help us win this battle. Double Team is, well, a bit cheap, let's be honest, and Flash is a very permanent decision to make. Hyper Beam, on the other hand, makes a lot of sense. It's undoubtedly the best move for handling Pidgeot, but if I delete any of Shedinja's moves for that, there's basically no going back. And so, I'll deal with this bird later. Normally, I traverse across the sea upon a Lapras, but thanks to Johnny 5, I can't get to Lapras, so I grab the good rod and go fishing for Goldeen, which is a 2-foot-long fish that is apparently cool with me surfing on it. Just need to watch out for the horn. I'm pretty conscious of the fact that I do need to add a bunch of levels to our favourite Husk, so I'll probably be coming back to the many swimmers and fishermen on Sea Route 21 a little later. But first, I want to get the secret key, and I'm making a point of showing everyone I meet here how to dig holes. No, not like that. You need to follow the steps. Look, watch me. Step 1, dig a hole. Step 2, Whack-a-Mole strikes back. Step 3, congratulate yourself on your very own hole. I'll grab the TM for Solar Beam just in case, and of course, Shedinja's favourite treat, floor candy. At the gym, I want to make the most of the trainers, even though Shedinja dislikes fire. And this should be fine as long as Shedinja continues to outspeed everything, but on the very first NPC, I've already encountered a speed tie. I was already wary of Rapidash, but it turns out that Ninetales is almost as fast. Fortunately, the dice rolls in my favour, and I continue to dig my way through the gym. That is until I meet a Ponyta that has no business being this strong, or for that matter, this fast. I'm only 1 point short of a speed tie, so a quick trip to the fighting dojo is all I need to deal with this. But my next obstacle is my not-so-little pony, and just like its little friend, it has Fire Spin, a move that is usually a mild annoyance. But today, it's a guaranteed trip to Blackout Land. Well, there's always the quiz, and as long as I can get the question right... It's smooth sailing now through to the gym leader himself. I obviously won't be able to win yet, but I want to get an idea of what I'm up against. The first 2 are of course fine, but what about Rapidash? Well, it's a 12-point difference in speed, so naturally, this is as far as I can go. Blaine? Why? Critical hit. So, Arcanine. Ooh, it's actually even faster than Rapidash. Okay, well at least we now know what the target is. I've got 7 rare candies at this point, and that gets me to an in-battle speed stat of 97. But it's a little too soon to use the candies, and since Shedinja levels up so fast, it's only just over an hour of in-game time before it reaches level 62. Just for fun, we can take down that one remaining trainer in the gym with the speedy horse, and if all goes well, Blaine should be a piece of cake. Cake. General misses aside, the only way this can really go wrong is if Dig doesn't one-shot, but Shedinja is very much in over-leveled territory now, and the battle ends so fast I didn't even have time to finish my cake. Now I can put it off no longer, so it's back to the Silph Co and let's see the result of all that training. Okay, this doesn't look good, but I think we're alright. All we need to do is get a critical hit. Critical hits aren't really Shedinja's thing though, as its base speed of 30 translates to an abysmal crit rate of 5.86%, or about 1 in 17, so I should probably be pleased that after only 13 tries, Shedinja gets a crit. But good, it appears to be a range. I don't think I've talked about damage ranges on the channel before, so here's a quick rundown of how it works. After the game has calculated the damage that a move will do, it goes ahead and applies a random factor of 85 to 100% to inject an air of randomness. This is actually still the case today, and has been throughout Pokemon's history. This means that not only do we need a 1 in 17 critical hit, we also need it to be a good one. On my 31st attempt, I get another critical hit, but it does even less damage than last time. I'm sure this is possible, but my patience has worn a little thin. So to boost the chances of a one-hit KO, I find even more trainers to fight and return to John 2 levels higher. And remarkably, on my third try at level 65, the tanky bird finally falls from the screen. Hey! Didn't even need the rare candies. Oh, I sound so happy. Now I figure I can use Execute to set up Swords Dance with no risk of anything bad happening, but I'm wrong, and that was a terrible idea. After more than 30 battles with John, I'd really rather not lose here, but my only hope is to one-shot everything, and also, I can't make use of Dig. I then blunder against Gyarados using Silver Wind in favour of Shadow Ball, but thankfully it doesn't matter. Alakazam is of course fine, and this might actually be doable. Shadow Ball for Charizard. And I've done it! That's the most trouble I've had with Johnny 5 pretty much ever. I happen to have a full heal, which is nice. Now I can grab Lapras, who won't be ferrying me across the sea today, but will be playing the role of Boulder Pusher. Is it just me, or does this sound like Dead Cells? Man, I love that game. Giovanni is another battle where Shedinja pretty much can't lose. I'm trying to think of things to say about this battle, but it's really not giving me much to work with. Ooh, a guard spec. Shall we move on? Looming on the not-so-distant horizon, like a crafty crow that stubbornly waits for a delicious bag of household rubbish to be absent-mindedly placed outside and forgotten by an easily distracted middle-aged man called Steve, whose attention has been divided between the tedium of his chores and the desire to eat something frozen, is John VI's Pidgeot. And just like the crow that is planning to ruin that poor man's afternoon, Pidgeot will be doing all it can to make Shedinja sad. And that's why I'm battling all the trainers in Sabrina's gym. If you're wondering why I still haven't fed Shedinja the candy it so desperately craves, the reason is that there's a sort of sweet spot that starts at around level 70. From that point up till level 98, it needs around 10,000 to 12,000 EXP for each level, so I plan to have it wait a little bit longer. Much like the many trainers here, Sabrina herself is basically EXP fodder. This largely thanks to Silverwind. The only thing that could go wrong is Venomoth using Poison Powder, but that doesn't happen, and that's gym badge number 7. Over in the Viridian gym, there are trainers here that I don't think I've battled since the millennium, and for context, I got Red and Blue for Christmas in 1999. But none shall be spared today, as there's almost no distance left between us and the dreaded Pigeon of Doom. Now against Giovanni, Dugtrio has frequently made trouble for me on the channel with its alarmingly high speed. But today, well, my Pokemon is level 70, and to be honest, that one line pretty much sums up the rest of the battle. With that, we have all 8 shiny badges, and it's time to battle John and his bird. Okay, well at the very least, Shedinja is still a good deal faster, but with the extra 10 levels on Pidgeot, it looks like even a great critical hit would be unable to bring it down. And so, it is now time to bring out the candies. To get the most out of them, I'm leveling up to 72 manually, and 7 candies makes 79. And a soul-crushing number of John fights later, Sheddy gets a crit. But well, I don't think it was a very good one. I decide to pay a visit to the abandoned power plant and have fun fighting all the exploding Pokeballs, and even outspeed this one, which is the fastest Pokemon in the game. Well, perhaps the second fastest now. I get the floor candy and then annihilate Zapdos with a single ball of shadow, causing Shedinja to level up. I then spend a while trying to figure out if I've missed any more rare candies, and it occurs to me that I've missed the HM for strength, which of course means I have indeed missed another candy, and from there I sort of just wander onto Route 15 and find myself battling enough trainers that Shedinja levels up again. And with all of that, I think we're ready. Once again, it takes a painful number of attempts, but Shedinja finally gets a crit. No! But eventually... Yes! I beat Pidgeot, it took so long. Now, being extremely cautious to not waste this chance, I take to Bulbapedia to check on Rhyhorn's moves, and come to the conclusion that there's nothing it can do. So 3 lots of Swords Dance, and that's a very respectable attack stat of 940. Shadow Ball takes out Rhyhorn, and the rest of the battle is a walk in the park. What? I was just careless. No, you weren't, John. You did just fine. On to the Pokémon League. Oh, have I skipped a bit? It seems there was so little resistance, I jumped too far. Well, I suppose we can take a quick look at what happened. Ice Lady's Dugong is my setting up point, and then we one-shot everything. I said it'd be quick. Bruno has rock snakes, and they know how to throw rocks. Very scary indeed. Now I could set up here, but it's Bruno, so why bother? And this logic carries me through the fight up until Machamp, which is an almost one-shot. But yeah, that's Bruno. Agatha, well, at risk of sounding like a broken record, this is once again a series of one-shots, and to avoid the potential pitfall of confusion, Swords Dance is not on the menu. Now, the final Gengar gives me quite a spook, because that there is a speed tie, and Shedinja does win the coin toss, but that could very easily have gone badly. Back to Lance, and as you might have guessed, the big issue in this fight is Dragon Rage. Well, that's what I might have said if Shedinja was 20 levels lower. Dragon Rage is a risk, so I can't use Swords Dance, but it doesn't seem to be a problem. Aerodactyl swoops in and outspeeds Shedinja with a takedown, and here comes Wonder Guard to the rescue. It's a very good job it didn't use Supersonic. And Lance's ace is, funnily enough, utterly helpless in the face of my bug. 2 Shadow Balls later, and I've cleared the game and become the Pokémon League champion. What? What do you mean another challenger ahead? I have a bad feeling about this. Now, you may be thinking, oh, another Pidgeot arc. But things are different this time, and thankfully, in a good way. Yes, it still has Wing Attack, but it also has Sky Attack and Mirror Move, so it's now only a 1 in 3 chance that it'll break Shedinja on turn 1. Working back through the league, I take a cautious approach to Agatha's Gengar by setting up a Swords Dance on Golbat for that sweet, sweet badge boost on speed. Goodness me, that was a long sentence. And of course, Golbat wastes no time in serving up a Confuse Ray. On the next attempt, I set up on Arbok instead, outspeed Gengar, and take the win. I destroy Lance, and now I've made the executive decision to save the game. Usually, I don't save during the league out of respect for J-Rose, but on this occasion, the Elite Four members are so repeatable, I feel pretty comfortable saving the game. Despite a 2 in 3 chance of not losing on the first turn, Shedinja takes a couple more losses, and it's crucial that Pidgeot doesn't use Wing Attack, as it looks like we need 3 shots in total to take it down. Finally, Pidgeot goes for Mirror Move, causing it to copy my Swords Dance. Shedinja's powered up Silver Wind does huge damage, but as expected, this will need another turn. It's fair to say that the fate of this battle rests entirely on whatever move Pidgeot uses next. Will it be Wing Attack, Sky Attack, or Mirror Move? Will Shedinja finally triumph over the tanky bird? Will I ever unpause the game? Yes. Mirror Move! Pidgeot's Silver Wind is eaten up by Wonder Guard, and Shedinja takes the win. Shedinja completes the game at, the rest of the fight? Well, 2 more Swords Dances raises our attack stat to 985.
That's all I have to say about that.
Shedinja completes the game at level 88 in 12 hours and 19 minutes. Not particularly fast, but that was rather a lot of fun. It's easy to think of Shedinja as a glass cannon kind of creature, but while the glass part is sort of true, you have to drop it at just the right angle to make it smash. And its cannon is somewhat lacking in firepower. Actually, scratch that. Glass cannon is a terrible analogy for Shedinja. It is true that we could probably have beaten the game faster with Hyper Beam, but I have a feeling that Swords Dance will come in very handy for the real final boss in this game. But that's a story for another day. Now I don't know about you, but I'd quite like to know what the other version of me has been up to. And as always, I'd like to wish you a wonderful day, and I look forward to welcoming you back to another video soon. For now, bye!